What's up, guys? Today we are going to talk about setting up on brush piles or setting up on structured fishes. So what I'm going to do first is idle past the brush pile. I'm going to show it to you on side imaging, and then I'm going to mark a waypoint on it, and we're going to set up on it like we're going to fish it. So your two biggest things to keep in mind when you're setting up your boat is your wind and your current, because those are the things that are going to be fighting you as far as boat positioning, but also can affect where the fish are sitting on that particular piece of structure. So we'll go ahead and graph past the piece, and I'll kind of show you how I go about it. All right, so we're idling up here. Should be a decent brush pile coming up here on our left side of the screen before too long, but it's not going to look like much on side imaging, and I'll kind of explain why here in a minute. You'll see what it looks like on down imaging and forward facing sonar, and you might be surprised what you see. All right, so it's coming up in the upper left hand part of the screen here. You can see we've got some shad and stuff around it. I've probably broken them up slightly with my boat, but here is the actual brush pile itself right here. So I'm gonna drop a cursor on it so you can see it a little bit better, and then we're gonna zoom in. That's all it's gonna look like on side imaging. You're pretty much just seeing the shadow of the branches. Now this particular pile was a hickory tree that I actually had a massive fail on, and had big bundles of them together. My rope broke, everything sank, I lost it all. And this is where it ended up laying. But you know, no leaves, nothing like that, so just scattered branches. So this is all you're going to see from it. So what I like to do is drop cursor. I will go and select my brush icon so I know that it's trees, and then I'll exit out of that. So now what I'll do is I'll go to the front of the boat here, and I'll drop the trolling motor down, and we'll creep up on the brush pile itself, kind of show you how I would fish it and how I go about it. But before we do that, first thing we need to focus on, pay attention to, is the wind. So there's really no current here at Lake the Ozarks. It's not like a river system or anything really. You don't really have to worry about that. Obviously, if it was, you want to put your boat into the current, otherwise you're just going to blow right past what you're trying to fish each time. So here you have your wind, which we're going to treat as, you know, our main factor. So I'm going to go downwind of the brush pile so I can turn the nose of the boat into the wind, and that'll give you the most control. That way you're not trying to troll backwards, blowing out the brush pile, things like that. You want to be downwind from it, always fishing into the wind, generally speaking, just to help control your boat a little bit better. Okay, so we're gonna drop the trolling motor in the water, and waypoint is gonna be back here. Now if you look at my graph, I've got Lowrance, you can see here's the waypoint, here is the boat, and the blue line is indication that the boat is pointing. I have a heading sensor. So my GPS puck is all the way back here, the back of the boat. Very important that the location of this is as close to your transducer as possible. So my puck's here, my transducer is just right down here at the bottom of the jack plate. The reason that is important is because if that is, like, say up here, let's see, people have them mounted up here, you're gonna be off the distance from this location to your transducer every time you drop a waypoint. So what I like to do now is get spun around so we're facing into the wind, and I'll kind of show you my graph setup, and then how I can click on the waypoint, see the distance, and then obviously I'll show you my forward facing sonar. A lot of people have that now, which makes this a whole lot easier to fish structure, fish brush piles and stuff like that than it was in the past. So we're moving up. Here's a live scope, we'll look at that in a minute. But here's how I went about it for a really long time before we had live scope. I never had 360 or anything to make this easier, so this is how I always went about it, and it's a system that always works. So here's the waypoint, and you click on it on Lowrance, and then if you look down here, I don't know how well you can see on the glare of the screen, but right down here it tells you how many feet you are away from that waypoint. So what I would do is get the boat, bump it to the left a little bit so that line was basically on your waypoint icon, and then I would cast straight off the front of the boat, whatever that distance was, and start feeling around until you can feel the brush pile. Now what you can do with forward facing sonar and stuff that makes it a little easier is, you know, okay, this is roughly 50 feet in front of us. I need to this going out a little bit deeper. It's pretty deep here. So the pile is roughly 50 feet in front of us. Probably a little bit closer, into the 40s maybe. And you start shining this, you could see it for a second. There it was. So the pile's sitting right at about 35-40 feet-ish. Sorry, the glare is awful from the sun right there. I can't really do much about it on the location we are. But as you can see, you get right up on it, and there is the brush pile. Now what we're gonna do is go to the waypoint itself. I'll zoom in all the way on it. Now you can see my cursor's off a little bit too. The closer you get your cursor, obviously, the more accurate your little number is going to be. So now it says we're about 30 feet away, which is a little more in line with the live scope now. My cursor was off just a little bit, but you can see the pile. You can see there's some fish in it. Looks like some crappie, probably some bass in there too. If we can get right up on top of it, you can start to see it on my 2D as well. You can see my piece right there. So you know that if you do this correctly, you have your waypoints and stuff, your GPS set up right, that you're going to be accurate with your waypoints, and that's going to help you hit structure and stuff. It's really, really important if you do not have like forward-facing sonar or 360. It's less important if you have that now with that technology. It makes things a little bit easier. But that's how I set up on it. You know, wind, like I said, is your biggest factor, or current, boat traffic sometimes here, like the Ozarks is the other big thing. That's how I generally start off fishing. There are times though when you want to change your angle of attack and you just got to fight the wind a little bit, or fight current or something in that nature, just to get your bait presented in there right. Hopefully this helps you, you know, be a little more accurate on marking stuff. Like I said, this brush pile is a good example for it, but you can use it on ledges, like finding a hard spot, a shell bed or something, clumps of grass, like weed edges. We don't really have that here, but if you have that where you're at, that's all great things, or boulders especially. If you fish up north, like to fish smallmouth or something, great to idle through marked boulders, and then you can accurately kind of fan cast to them as you go through it. So that's how I do it. Hopefully it helps you, and thanks for watching.